Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Cybersecurity Weekly. I'm your host, Fred Cobb, Executive Vice President and CISO at Info Systems. And I'm fortunate today to have alongside me for a couple more episodes. So we're going to do for you today is Mr. Rob Ashcraft, Senior Cybersecurity Strategist. Rob, thanks for coming back to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on the episode. I appreciate that. I think we're hitting control number 6 today, which is one of my favorites.
Yes, indeed. This is the last, what's considered the basic control within the overall set of 20 controls we're going to be covering. We've covered the previous 5. For those of you that haven't had an opportunity to go back and listen to our discussions around 1 through 5, we would highly encourage you to do so. It's not like they have to be taken in any sort of order, even though they are in some way ordered by criticality in the publication from Center for Internet Security. However, they each are standalone controls and they all have merit and importance. So certainly go back and check those out if you haven't already. But as Rob mentioned, we're going to be talking about control number 6. And Rob, let's talk a little bit about security logging and why that is important. Now, what do we mean by capturing audit logs or capturing security logs? What are we talking about there?
Yep, control number 6 is the maintenance, monitoring, and analysis of audit logs, to be official there. And essentially saying an organization has to consider collecting, managing, analyzing their audit logs. So logs of events that can help detect or understand or even help recover from a cyber attack. And that's why this is one of my favorite CIS controls. It's often overlooked, but it is in the first basic 6 controls for a reason.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't tell you how many times I know you've gone in, I've gone in, we get called in for rapid response type work or incident response type work. One of the first things we're going to ask the customer, tell us, either tell us or, let us have access to the system so we can start gathering data out of the security logs, the audit logs, system logs, application logs. There's a lot more logging than just auditing, but it all goes into one nice tidy package of background information on what might be happening. And again, you go in, you start asking for logs or you start probing, they're not there. And Here you are trying to recreate what may have happened to cause the incident when you have no good data, no good digital footprint of what may have happened. So it's really important. Rob, you want to elaborate a little bit on why it's important to have those logs?
Well, certainly the deficiencies, I guess, I would say in security logging and the analysis of those are going to allow attackers to really hide their location. Often there's stealthy software, malicious software that sits in the background, and these activities are continuing to run on machines within a victim's environment. So if organizations keep audit records, then it allows us to go back and not only see what happened if an attack is detected, but also to detect if something is going on. And so these are they're super important.
Absolutely, Rob. It's important. And the other side of that too is not having the logs, or let's say you've done a relatively good job or a really good job even of going in and configuring the proper type of logging, the amount of information, in other words, how verbose the log files might be with good data. But as a busy person, or even a team of busy people, are you actually going to have time to really go in and granularly look at that log data on a routine basis? I've seen the other side of the coin where all the good logging was in place, information was being captured, and I would go in and say, have you noticed for the last 3 months you've had this particular type of infiltration, or this has been going on in your, oh no, we didn't notice that. Well, the data was there, right? But it was just a matter of paying attention to what's happening in the logs, taking action on what's happening in the logs. And that's really where, even for a relatively small company, logging can get out of hand, or the ability to look at those logs. They need some sort of either log analysis tool or a SIM. You want, Rob, if you wouldn't mind, talk a little bit about how a SIM can help you to correlate logs and take the human element out of it to a large degree.
Right. So a SIM is more in the security realm of things. It's a log analysis tool, but it's also SIM, which is SIEM, stands for Security Information and Event Management. And so it's looking at event logs and audit logs, and taking these components from firewalls, critical servers, even other network devices, workstations, and such, anything that can produce a syslog or other type of log that can be aggregated into that system. It brings those in and does an analysis on that. And it's often there's an event by itself doesn't necessarily mean anything bad's happening, but an event correlated with another event happening somewhere else is something that needs to be looked at and investigated. So it's correlating these things in a split second, doing it very quickly, and then bringing up alerts as needed. It also allows in that type of technology to, once an event is brought up, generally in the dashboard of this type of solution, you can dig down into that event and look into which IP it came from, I mean, down to the MAC IDs, and do some investigation and begin to pretty proactively shut things down or mitigate something nefarious that could be happening in the background.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
We'll be back with the Cybersecurity Weekly podcast after we pause for this special message. Security analysts believe cyber attacks will continue to escalate throughout 2020 and are recommending that every company, regardless of industry or size, place immediate focus on cybersecurity training and the tools that will protect you from these attacks. Did you know that you can book a cybersecurity assessment right now with Fred Cobb's team of cybersecurity engineers at InfoSystems? They will help you discover exactly where you are most vulnerable to a cyber attack and make recommendations on how to strengthen your defense in those areas. This is urgent. It's an issue that affects everyone in our community. Visit the InfoSystems website at www.infosystems.biz to request your cybersecurity assessment. Now back to the podcast.
It's important to note too that even though there's still the enterprise class SIMs, the big players out there, that in a lot of cases, just the basic install of one of the enterprise class SIMs is outside of the budget of a lot of small to medium businesses. However, there's some cost efficient ways. There's some per device or per user type SIM solutions out there that can really be cost effective and can do all the log correlation. If you have a compliance need, they can do the correlation and the storing of that information, and without a tremendous amount of money. If you've priced SIMs in the past and you haven't thought about some of these lower cost solutions or haven't even been exposed to them, highly encouraged to go back and look at some of those solutions out there, as opposed to some of the big players that are simply designed for those enterprise organizations that can afford a big spend on a SIM type product.
Yeah, some may not realize that they've looked into that in the past. These have changed over the years, especially in the last, 4 or 5 years, where there are managed solutions. In fact, InfoSystems, the company we work for, has a solution like that that's managed. It's a third party, and so it scales well for smaller organizations. And so it now allows smaller organizations where maybe price was just prohibitive to have this type of technology to now have that and be able to have that type of proactive defense, which is wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, some of the key things you would want to monitor, as you're thinking about, what do I log, what's important to capture. Think about, the edge of your network. Your firewall typically is sitting on the edge. Most firewalls, even very inexpensive firewalls, have logging capability. So it's very important to log, ingress, egress traffic. Get that information piped over to either a SIM, or if you don't have a SIM and you don't plan on having a SIM, make sure you get some kind of cadence where you're routinely reviewing activity around the firewall to see what might be going on that's nefarious in nature. Beyond that, think about your critical servers. What are the keys to the kingdom, so to speak, in your server environment? Maybe domain controllers, maybe your file servers, maybe your database servers. Certainly, your email servers. There's a lot you can do inside of even Office 365, which is now, by the way, I keep forgetting that Microsoft made the change last month to Microsoft 365 for the business license. So I got to keep reminding myself to call it that now. But all those critical systems, they have independent autonomous logging. And that's one of the reasons why, again, falling back to that SIM discussion we were just having, if you think about even a few systems that make up your critical infrastructure, trying to look at all those logs on a daily basis or some sort of routine without getting them piped into one location, getting some sort of engine to correlate what's happening,
Right.
can be hard to manage, but you still need to do that, right?
It is an absolute essential part of a good cyber defense is to have this type of log correlation and analysis going on. So we highly recommend it. Not only for going back and if a cyber incident happens and be able to analyze that and figure out kind of point zero of where the attack happened and how it happened, but also just for being proactive in your cyber defense and keeping an active lookout for bad activity happening behind the scenes in your network.
Certainly. Well, Rob, I think we've talked a little bit about control number 6, enough to give everyone a little bit of insight into what it is, and about logging, why you need it, why it's important, why you need that digital footprint, why you need that information for audit purposes in the event of some sort of compliance need, why you need it to do proactive monitoring to figure out, is there something alive on my network that's happening behind the scenes that's causing me problems or can down the road. So all those reasons are why it's important to pay a lot of attention to CSC control number 6. And again, that's the last of our basic controls that we're going to be talking about. Next episode, we're going to be talking about the first foundational control and talk a little bit about web content, through browsers, talk about webmail, talk about regular fat clients with email and what can be done to protect just the overall health of your email system. So stay tuned for that. That'll be coming up next episode. And everybody out there, really appreciate you tuning in with Rob and I today, and appreciate all the activity around our podcast. We're getting thousands and thousands of downloads, which is really happy to hear. Keeps us stoked and wanting to do more of these. So thanks everybody out there for downloading. Rob, any final thoughts? And we'll close this one up.
No, I think that wraps it up pretty good. And I would say this, if you wanted more information on this kind of technology and what log analysis and correlation can do for your organization, certainly give us a call and we'll be glad to talk about how that applies to your environment.
Great. Thanks, Rob. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you soon.